Hi and welcome everybody. I have an abstract watercolor ink art journal page for you today because I was a little bit uninspired to do an art journaling kind of video or mixed media kind of video because I was a lot into drawing the past weeks, and with our little holiday break, yeah, I mainly worked in my sketchbook and in our new pottery studio in the basement. What's really exciting, because it really brings my mixed media work and my all the colors I like using and all that kind of stuff to another creative I don't know, station room, practice, whatever. Today I'm just playing with inks and watercolor to get back to creative, not creative, but painterly creative mood maybe. And I'm using inks from Ferris Wheel Press today, together with some watercolors from Golden, the QoR Watercolors. I picked these because I knew that they have the property to move the pigments a lot around, and I really like this effect when I do an abstract watercolor painting. I did these kind of grid pages already in the past a lot, and there are already some videos on my channel, but it's been a while that I made such a video. It's always really nice because you just can play and experiment with your paints and with your mark making tools, and that's just relaxing and there is no pressure. The Ferris Wheel Press inks are lovely inks. They have different types of inks. Both that I'm using here are, I think, everyday inks, which means they are watercolor kind of inks. They have all some mica pigments in them, and they are also, well, they also have an interesting color shift usually, and mainly two different tones of colors and undertones. I will try to not forget to write the names of the colors I'm using in the description. I think the one I'm using now, the dark one, is the Embers of Time. I love this one. It's really, really dark ink, and once it gets in contact with water and it bleeds around, you get a reddish undertone, which is quite interesting. It's very intense, you can see it here. I think I got a little bit too much on my page and I accidentally dropped into the turquoisey area, which I don't mind. I always go with what the things are doing on my page, but here I try to just remove a little bit of the ink because it was just too much. Yeah, and I'm playing. I'm just trying to lay out the colors. I decided to go with a orangish quinacridone mix. I think it's a burnt umber plus quinacridone gold. I don't have in mind which colors are in this box. I only know that these are my golden QoR watercolors. And I'm brightening up the top one a little bit. And surprisingly, I thought the page would dry a lot lighter than it is now, but it didn't. The dark ink will dry lighter and you will get a really nice copper shimmer once it's dry. But the rest is stayed quite intense. Maybe it's that paper. I'm working in the Strathmore watercolor journal, and I'm working on the smooth side. It has two different textures. One is very smooth and looks like a cotton watercolor paper, and the other side is very rough textured. Looks more like a cold press paper. Might be, I don't know which quality the paper has, to be true. Might be that there is some cotton in there. I don't know. But I'm using the smoother side. It has some texture, but it's not very heavy. And the other side is more textured, and I don't know, I really like this side a little bit more. Here I'm dropping in some water because that's what I really like about the Ferris wheel press inks. You get some nice bleeding when you drop water into the wet ink, and you will find a link and a discount code for them in the video description. And I know that they are also now selling on Amazon. I don't think that the discount code works on Amazon, but you can check that out there. I decided to bring back that turquoisey ink. The first one I've used, I don't know this name at the moment. Check the description, please. Just to bring in a few more accents. What I also really like doing is some mark making into the wet paint using Derwent drawing pencils because they work very nice into when you work into a wet surface. I'm just searching for a black color. In this case, I'm using the ink black, and I just sharpened the tip, and I'm also dipping the nib into water so I get some really deep, intense marks with it. And it looks really nice when you drag it through the wet areas on your page. I do some mark making here and there, draw some or scribble some patterns into the spaces, and I try not to overwork it. I'm someone who really enjoys making these marks, and sometimes I overwork things, add too many marks, and I always try to hold myself back and not doing that. You need some marks to make it interesting, but maybe not too much. Sometimes I really can't stop myself because I just enjoy it so much. Here I grab the mustard, Derwent Inktense, and I'm scribbling into the turquoisey area. I always try to use colors where I know they won't mix in an ugly way. So I knew the mustard and the turquoisey would give me a greenish shade. And yeah, black is always, I think it works with almost every color in, just except from white maybe. And talking about white, I also really like making some white splatters into the wet paint. I will do that later. Here I just thought about adding a bit more intense turquoise with the watercolors, but then I didn't like the dots I made, and I just add a little bit more water and blend that. The core, I think it's the cobalt teal color. I think it's cobalt turquoise, not teal, cobalt turquoise. It's a wonderful color and one of my favorite colors, not only from Golden, also from other brands. And it's a very intense and a little bit opaque color, and that worked quite nicely here. I add a few more marks with that black pencil, and then I think I'm doing that white splattering. I really like when you do it on a wet surface because then the white blends in, and especially if you're using acrylic ink into watercolor or watercolor ink, it bleeds in a really interesting and nice way. And that's what I'm going to do here as well. Once I'm done with my mark making, I decided to also draw some botanical leaves into the areas, into my little squares. I really like that, making some giving some squares images. You could also stamp images into them if you are not a fan of drawing on your own. You can use stamps for that. or you can use also other motifs. I'm just someone who really likes nature stuff, botanical stuff, especially when it's becoming an abstract piece. I really like combining this with these kind of elements, flowers, leaves, or seed pods. For the white, I'm using the drawing ink from Ferris Wheel Press. It's a permanent white ink, and I think it's quite the same as an acrylic ink. To me, it looks the same. There is no difference for me. Maybe it flows a bit better as it's a calligraphy ink. Maybe it has something in it that makes it more suitable for dip pen. Probably, I don't know, because I usually do not draw a lot. I would have drawn over that with white and the dip pen, but working with white over ink is tricky because inks are very pigmented and they usually bleed into every lighter color you put over the top. It's different with watercolors. That usually works quite okay, but with inks, it usually doesn't work really well. Maybe it will work if you do fixative, some layers of fixative over the top, and then you can go over the top with white. But I didn't want to do that, so I'm letting that dry, and then I will be back. I will make some more marks, and I will also draw a focal point just with a Posca paint pen in black. Yeah, I decided also to make some of these dark ink splatters. That's, I think, the Embers of Time color, and when they are wet they look black, but once they dry the copper shine comes through and gives you really interesting color accents. I try to limit myself. Don't add too much. I don't want to add the splatters all over the painting. I just try to keep it in the areas where that black already was. I also made a few splatters with the cobalt turquoise, but I used the wrong brush, I think, because it splatters anywhere, just not where I wanted it to be. So I have just a few of these turquoisey splatters on my page. I like them, and I like that this paint is quite opaque, so it stays on top of everything and stays visible. One thing that's also really nice once your page is dry, add some mark making with a usual pencil. A pencil line is different to a colored pencil line or to an ink pencil line because it has that sheen that from the graphite, and that can be really interesting. And also the quality of line is different as it's usually very thin, and that can be quite interesting. And I'm just adding a few marks with it here and there, but you, for example, also could do some writing with it on your page that looks nice as a style element. Yeah, just another way of using your supplies for different mark making techniques. I'm now going to draw in kind of a focal point. I'm just drawing a big botanical element. I'm using a Posca paint pen, the thinner version. I think these other three, no, the 1 PCM, I never know the numbers. It's just that thinner plasticky nib, which makes a thinner line. And I just hold the pen at a very small angle to the paper, so I get a really nice line quality. It's, if you press a bit more you get a really thick line, and if you press less you get that really thin line, and that almost looks a bit as if you would have used dip pen, I think, and that's a look I really like. As this does not pop up from the page a lot, I will color it in later with a white colored pencil to make it pop up from the page. but first I need to let that line work dry. And in the meantime, I will do a little bit more mark making. I think the whole page is quite dark because the colors didn't dry as light as I expected them to dry, and I decided to use a lighter a lighter Neocolor to make some marks over the top, as I didn't want to use a wet medium because I was really afraid that any wet medium will pick up the ink from underneath and then get a more darker muddy color, and I wanted the lights to stay light, so I picked the Neocolors. I really love them. They are very opaque. You can use them wet and dry, and it's a nice medium for mixed media. And for drawing, I use them, I would say, almost every day. And I have two of every color. I have this box on my desk, and I have my travel boxes on the couch because I draw a lot on the couch in the evenings, and I need the Neocolors every time. I'm also doing a little bit of stamping, just that number stamp from one of our Mix It Up stamp sets. I really like this as a style element on an abstract piece, also on other mixed media backgrounds. I think it goes well with almost everything. And then I decided to bring in a few more marks with the Neocolor, and this time I try to make the marks a bit smaller and give them a different look. I'm now coloring in my leaf with a white Derwent Drawing pencil. It's one of my favorite pencils, and I just shared a video on Monday with my lovely members unboxing some of the new colors. I use them quite a lot in my sketchbook. I'm using the white one here to color in that leaf and make it pop a little more, and I also do a tiny bit of mark making to my page, but these are the last steps. Once I'm done with this, I finished the page. I really like how it turned out. It often, with this technique, it often in the beginning looks kind of weird, and I'm not sure if this is going to turn out nice. But it usually always does. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video and you are inspired. And I hope we will see us next time. Bye.